50 years ago, abortion was just as illegal in the state of Texas as it is today. But no one came and rode to the rescue of Texas women and girls from outside of this state. In fact, Texas women like Jane Roe of Roe versus Wade were two Texas attorneys, Linda Coffey, who still lives in Dallas, Sarah Weddington from Bright Blue, Abilene, Texas, prevailed upon an all-male United States Supreme Court to win the protection for the right to privacy. In other words, to make very personal, very often painful decisions without fear of government intrusion or intervention. So look, here's my logic. If Texas women won the way 50 years ago, Texas women are going to win it back in 2020. 21 weeks ago tomorrow, 19 kids and their 2 teachers were taken from us in a classroom in Uvalde, Texas. Absolutely defenseless against a guy who at the age of 18 could buy not 1 but 2 AR-15s and hundreds of rounds of ammunition for a weapon that was originally designed to be used and carried by U.S. soldiers in Vietnam. To take an enemy soldier down at 500 yards, penetrate a steel helmet, and knock him down dead. Those kids were not at 500 yards. They were at 5 feet max. Nothing on their head but maybe a baseball cap. Their parents, and I've met them, only able to identify the bodies by the shoes that they were wearing or the DNA swab that they had to take to identify the body at the end of that day, May 24th, 2022. But we got to know this. Those kids were also defenseless against Greg Abbott, who after 5 of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history, which have taken place in this state just over the last 5 years, the only thing he's done is make it easier for people who should not have firearms to carry them openly on our streets. He did away with the license to carry program and signed something into law known as permitless carry. And now the 38,000 people who over the last 6 years were rejected for a license to carry because by law enforcement they were deemed just too dangerous to themselves, too dangerous to a loved one, too dangerous to these kids in these classrooms, in our schools across Texas. Now all 38,000 of them, because Greg Abbott turned his back on law enforcement, are free to carry openly. And none of us are the wiser or the safer for that. So here's what we do. If we're going to follow the lead of these extraordinary parents in Uvalde who would be forgiven if they never wanted to show their face again in public, but they're not about that. They took a 5-hour bus ride to be in Edinburgh, Texas, the day of the only debate that Greg Abbott would allow, knowing full well they would not be allowed into a 1,000-person theater that he didn't allow a single soul into, to make sure that none of us lose sight what happened to their kids and what all of us together can do to make sure that it never happens to another child in Texas. Raising the age of purchase to 21 for an AR-15. A red flag law for those who already have guns in their home and are threatening to use them against others in our lives. A universal background check. On this much, there is common ground and agreement in Texas, and we working together are going to make sure that we make the most of it. 18 months ago, the temperature dropped in Texas in February of 2021. But the guy in power could not keep the power going to the people that he purported to serve. Here in the energy capital of the world, the lights went out, the heat stopped running, and the water stopped flowing as well because it was frozen in the pipes above your head, pipes that soon burst as soon as the temperature began to rise again, causing $10 billion in damage to properties all across the state of Texas. 700 people lost their lives in this state that we know of. Vietnam-era veteran, 75 years old, can't charge his oxygen tank in his house, so he wheels it out to his truck where they find him dead of hypothermia. An 11-year-old child in Conroe, Texas, his mom unable to pile enough blankets on his body. He is dead by the next morning. Kids who burned up in their houses because their parents lit fire to their furniture, trying to keep them warm, and those fires got out of control. Again and again and again, And here's the kicker, and the insult to the injury that we sustained. That grid is still not fixed going into this next winter, and all of us got left holding the bag with higher energy and electricity prices. $45 more on average per month for electricity ratepayers in Texas. You can call that the Abbott tax if you wish, and you can spread that around to anybody who will listen. And I tell you what, this happened because as the power was failing, Greg Abbott ordered the price of electricity pegged at its highest allowable rate for days. And that meant that gas soon started trading at 200 times what it had sold for the day before. Some utilities went into bankruptcy. Others took billions of dollars in debt on. But his buddies and his largest campaign contributors, their companies literally made $11 billion in profit over the course of 5 days last February. Here's what we do. We win this election. We winterize and weatherize every part of the grid. We connect ERCOT to the national grid so we can pull down electricity when we need it, sell it back up when we got a surplus. And for those who stole the $11 billion from us, we're going to take those bastards to court and get every penny back for the ratepayer in the state of Texas. That's what we're going to do. Last number I'm going to leave you with, and that is the number 8. That is the number of years that this guy has served in the highest position of public trust. And look, not only has he served in that office, Republicans control every other statewide office in the land. They control the state house and they control the state senate. No wonder on that debate stage, he's blaming Joe Biden and everybody but himself, or where he sits, which is where the buck stops in this state last time I looked. So, does Greg Abbott wake up in the morning wanting the grid to fail, or for kids to be shot in their classroom, or for our property taxes to go up $20 billion since he took office? Probably not, but he's been unwilling or unable to make the changes necessary to show the leadership that we deserve and demand to make it better for all of us. So hear me out. In the final days, because Mahela's right, 7 days left to us before the first big day of early voting, next Monday, the 24th. He is going to be raining negative ads down upon your head, trying to scare you about us, about one another, and most importantly for this election, about our candidate. So let me just tell you this. After 8 years, homicides are on the rise in Texas by 50%. And he could try to blame anyone else, but the reason that is because of that permitless carry bill that he signed into law that has gun violence going through the roof. Gun violence now the leading cause of death for children and teenagers. Gun violence claiming more school children here than in any other state in America today. And the governor who promised, when asked by a reporter at the bill signing ceremony outlawing abortion in Texas with no exception for rape, that reporter says, Mr. Governor, what are you going to do for the victims of rape? He replies, we will eliminate rape in the state of Texas. More rapes have been committed in the state of Texas than in any of the other 49. And the ability to bring a perpetrator to justice has declined by half. And it didn't just happen right now in Austin, Texas. So don't believe him when he talks about life or heartbeats. This is about control over the bodies of women and rapists having more rights than their victims in this state. We can do better. Y por el último, whatever legitimate question you or reporter might have for him, he's going to try to distract us, right? We talk about the exodus in the classroom, a threat for this state, threatening, by the way, to turn their parents in for child abuse, the conclusion of which will be that those kids in that loving home are turned over to child protective services, the worst. And by the way, when we win, we're turning CPS around and we're elevating those kids so that they're actually taken care of. But the place he's going to point to more than anyone else is the border. And the folks he wants us to be most afraid of are the immigrants who are seeking to come to this country. Now, let me tell you this. Do we have legitimate challenges at our border? Absolutely. We all traffickers when they enter this country. Absolutely. That is a threat and a challenge, and we need to be more successful. But remember this number, 8. After 8 years, this is where we are with Greg Abbott in charge at the border. You've got stunts like busing migrants to Washington, D.C. or Chicago or New York. I don't know about you, but I don't think that's solving any fundamental problem that we have right now. The 1.5 miles of border wall that he has built so far, that's more of a public art project right now than a security device in the state of Texas. $4 billion of your money, of our tax dollars that have been spent in counter